She mistook a CEO for the taxi driver, but that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. Emma was running late. It was one of those days when everything seemed to go wrong. She had overslept, missed her bus, and now here she was, standing in the pouring rain, desperately trying to catch a cab. The streets of New York City were crowded, and the traffic was backed up for miles. She checked her watch. The interview of her life was in just 30 minutes, and she was still stuck on the corner of Fifth Avenue, drenched and frustrated. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, reminding her of the stakes. She had to make it to the interview. Without it, she would lose the last chance she had to turn her life around. With no taxis in sight, Emma started walking in the direction of the next subway entrance, but then she saw him. A car, parked just up ahead, its engine running, with the driver sitting behind the wheel, his gaze focused straight ahead. Without thinking, Emma approached the car. She knocked on the window, hoping he would give her a ride. The man rolled down the window, giving her a polite but neutral smile. "Need a ride?" he asked. "Yes, please," Emma said, grateful that someone was finally offering help. She quickly opened the door and slid into the passenger seat, trying to control the nervous energy buzzing in her chest. She noticed the man's impeccable suit and the way he seemed so calm, so composed, so different from the hectic mess that was her life. She glanced at him briefly and noticed his deep blue eyes, sharp features, and perfectly styled hair. "Thank you so much for stopping," Emma said, a little embarrassed to be accepting help from a stranger, but too desperate to care. "No problem," the man replied smoothly, adjusting his grip on the steering wheel. "Where to?" She gave him the address. "To her interview," and the car pulled away from the curb. The rain pattered against the windows, creating a soothing sound that made Emma feel strangely at ease. They didn't say much at first, the silence hanging in the air like an unspoken understanding. But Emma, trying to break the awkward tension, started talking. She mentioned how her car had broken down earlier, how she was already late for the most important interview of her life, and how everything seemed to be going wrong today. The man nodded, listening intently, his expression thoughtful. "I know how that feels," he said quietly, his voice calm but distant. "I've had my share of tough days." Emma looked at him, surprised by his response. His words were so calm, so genuine, but there was something about him that made her feel like he wasn't just talking about the traffic or her struggles. "What do you do?" she asked, trying to learn a little more about the man who had been kind enough to offer her a ride. "Tech," he replied, his smile barely noticeable. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Tech? Like coding and stuff?" "Something like that," he said with a chuckle, giving her a small smile. Emma laughed nervously, trying to shift the conversation to something lighter. "I'm terrible with technology," she admitted, a little embarrassed. "I can't even keep up with all the apps people use these days." He chuckled, the sound low and warm. "You're not alone," he said, glancing at her for a brief moment before focusing back on the road. It was an easy conversation, and for the first time in the last few hours, Emma felt a bit of peace. The traffic was thick, but the ride was smooth. As they neared her destination, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. She was already running late for her interview, and she still had no idea what was in store. The car slowed as they approached the building, and Emma reached for the door handle, preparing to get out. But as she did, she looked over at the man one last time. "Thank you," she said sincerely. "I really appreciate this." He gave her a slight nod. "Good luck with your interview," he said, his tone surprisingly warm for a stranger. Emma smiled, grateful for the unexpected kindness. Little did she know, this ride was just the beginning of a journey that would change everything. Emma walked into the lobby of the high-rise building, her heart pounding in her chest. The grand marble floors gleamed under the bright overhead lights, and the air smelled faintly of freshly polished wood and expensive cologne. She glanced around nervously, her eyes catching sight of the sleek glass doors leading to the elevator. She had made it just in time, barely. The cab ride had been fast, but now she was here, standing in front of the most important opportunity of her life. The interview was for a job at a prestigious art gallery, and she had been dreaming of working there for years. But as she adjusted her second-hand blazer and pulled her hair back into a tight ponytail, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had met the man in the taxi just moments ago, and yet she couldn't stop thinking about how strange it had been to connect with him so easily. His calm demeanor, the way he had listened to her, the warmth in his voice. It was almost as if he had known her for years. He wasn't just a taxi driver, of course. She had figured that out as soon as he mentioned his job in tech. But she never could have imagined that he would be anyone important. She sighed, trying to shake the thought from her mind. She had to focus on the interview. She had to make a good impression. Emma stepped forward and approached the elevator, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. As the doors slid open, she took a deep breath and stepped inside. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. The soft hum of the elevator motor and the slow rise of the building were all that kept her company as her mind raced. The brief conversation she had with the man kept replaying in her head. What if he was someone who could help her get ahead in the art world? What if he was connected to someone in the gallery? Emma shook her head, trying to push the thought aside. She couldn't afford to think about that now. The elevator dinged, signaling her arrival on the top floor. The doors opened, revealing a sleek, modern office space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Emma's nerves kicked in again. She took a step forward, her feet suddenly feeling like lead. She was about to walk into the office of the gallery's director, and she didn't want to mess this up. As she walked toward the reception desk, the receptionist gave her a polite smile and asked for her name. Emma's voice was shaky as she introduced herself, but the receptionist waved her through, directing her toward the large wooden doors at the back of the room. "They're expecting you," the receptionist said, her voice warm. Emma nodded, swallowing hard. She opened the door, stepping into the room where her future would be decided. The director, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and glasses, looked up from his desk as she entered. He smiled and gestured for her to sit. "Emma, it's a pleasure to meet you," he said. "I've heard a lot of great things about you." Emma smiled, feeling a little more at ease. She had done her research on the gallery, and she knew this was her big break. She sat down, trying to steady her breathing. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview," she said, her voice steadying with each word. The director nodded and smiled, then proceeded with the questions. It wasn't until they were wrapping up that Emma's phone buzzed in her bag. She glanced down, seeing a message from an unknown number. She opened it, only to find a simple text. "Good luck with your interview, Emma. Hope it goes well. Liam." Her heart skipped a beat. Liam? The name was familiar. She quickly pulled up her phone's contact list, scanning for the number. It wasn't in her phone. Was this the same Liam? The man who had driven her to her interview just an hour ago? She couldn't believe it. Had he been watching her? Was he somehow involved with this gallery? Emma's thoughts were racing again, and she tried to hide her confusion. She turned her attention back to the director, who was wrapping up the interview. "We'll be in touch soon," he said, standing up and offering his hand. Emma stood and shook his hand, her mind still swirling. She could feel the weight of the message in her pocket, and as she left the office, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the ground floor, but her mind was elsewhere. Who? Was Liam really? Was he just a kind stranger offering a ride, or was there something more to his actions? As the elevator descended, Emma's phone buzzed again, this time with an email. She glanced at the screen, and her breath caught in her throat. It was from the gallery, but there was something unusual about it. The subject line read, "You're invited to the gala this Friday. Special guest, Liam Parker, CEO." Emma stared at the email, her heart pounding in her chest. Was this all a coincidence, or was Liam more involved in her life than she had ever imagined? Emma stared at her phone, her thumb hovering over the email from the gallery. She could barely process the words on the screen. "You're invited to the gala this Friday. Special guest, Liam Parker, CEO." It took a moment for her mind to catch up with what she was seeing. Liam Parker? The man who had driven her to the interview. The man who had been so kind to her. Was this the same person? She felt a strange mix of excitement and confusion. Why was he suddenly involved in this? Why was he a special guest at the gala? Was he truly the CEO of the company? Emma bit her lip and reread the email, feeling the weight of it pressing down on her. She had to go. This was a chance to learn more, to figure out what was really going on. But as she stared at her phone, another thought crossed her mind. What if he had been following her this whole time? What if he had arranged everything just to test her? The idea made her stomach churn, but at the same time, she couldn't deny the curiosity gnawing at her. She had to know more. It had been a long, exhausting day. She had barely made it to her interview on time, and now, she was getting pulled into this strange whirlwind of events. But she couldn't ignore it. This could be her moment, her chance to get a real break in the art world. But something about it all felt off. She shook her head, trying to push the doubts aside. She quickly typed a response to the email, confirming her attendance at the gala. She was going. She had to. As the week passed, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the gala. The invitation had come with an added detail. The dress code was formal, and the event would be held at a luxurious venue on the Upper East Side of the city. She had never been to a place like this before, let alone attended a high-profile gala. She felt out of place just thinking about it. She had always been the kind of person who made ends meet with her art, working late nights at the diner and scraping by. But now, she was being invited to a world that seemed so far removed from her own. The thought of walking into that venue, surrounded by people who had wealth and power, made her anxious. But she was determined. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to let her insecurities stop her. She didn't have a fancy dress or expensive shoes, but she would make do with what she had. Emma spent the next few days preparing. She borrowed a dress from her friend Jenny, a sleek black number that didn't quite fit perfectly, but it would do. She had to look the part, even if she felt completely out of place. Friday night arrived, and Emma stood in front of the full-length mirror in her tiny apartment, adjusting her dress. The lights in her apartment flickered, casting a soft glow over her reflection. She looked at herself, wondering if she was making a mistake. Was this really her world? Was she meant to be here? Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. A message from Jenny popped up. "You got this, girl. Don't let anything stop you. Have fun at the gala. I'll be waiting to hear all about it." Emma smiled at her friend's words. Jenny had always been her biggest supporter, and the message gave her the encouragement she needed. She took a deep breath, grabbed her purse, and left the apartment. The city streets were busy, but as Emma made her way to the venue, she felt like an outsider. The building loomed ahead, its elegant facade illuminated by soft lighting. She took another deep breath before walking through the grand entrance. Inside, the gala was in full swing. People in tuxedos and evening gowns moved about, sipping champagne and laughing. The sound of classical music floated in the background, adding to the sophistication of the event. Emma felt a pang of nervousness in her chest, but she reminded herself that she belonged here just as much as anyone else. She was a talented artist, and this could be her chance to prove herself. She took her first few steps into the ballroom, scanning the crowd for any familiar faces. That's when she saw him, Liam. He was standing near the back, talking to a group of people. As soon as he saw her, his expression shifted, and a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Emma's heart skipped a beat. He was dressed in a sharp black suit, looking every bit the CEO she had heard about. But there was something about him, something that made her feel like they shared a connection, even if she had no idea what it truly meant. As she walked toward him, her steps faltered for a moment. What was she doing here? Why was she suddenly so drawn to him? Liam turned his attention to her as she approached. "Emma," he said, his voice warm. "I'm glad you could make it. Thanks for the invite," she replied, trying to keep her composure. "It's impressive here." He chuckled, the sound light and easy. "You look beautiful," he added, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made Emma's heart race. She felt a blush creep up her neck. She wasn't used to compliments, especially from someone like him. "Thank you," she murmured, feeling suddenly self-conscious. Liam gestured toward the crowd. "Come, let me introduce you to a few people," he said, leading her further into the gala. As they walked through the crowd, Emma couldn't help but notice the way people reacted to him, how they respected him, how they deferred to him. She had no idea what she was getting into, but one thing was clear. Her life was about to change, and Liam Parker was going to play a huge part in it. The gala was in full swing, the glittering lights casting long shadows across the ballroom. Emma felt like a small fish in a vast ocean of powerful people. She walked beside Liam, who seemed perfectly at home, greeting everyone with the ease of a man who had spent his life in rooms like this. They passed by clusters of guests, all well-dressed, talking in hushed tones about business, politics, and art. Emma couldn't help but feel like an outsider. But Liam, as always, made her feel like she belonged. "Don't worry," he said softly, noticing the way she clung to his side. "You're doing great." She glanced up at him, surprised. "I'm just trying to keep it together." He smiled down at her, his eyes warm. "You look fantastic." Her cheeks flushed at the compliment, and she quickly looked away, focusing on the crowd ahead. They stopped at a large table set with drinks, and Liam introduced her to a few of his colleagues. The people here were all business, but there was something about them that made Emma uneasy. She wasn't used to this kind of world, the world of millionaires and executives. She had always worked hard to get by, doing whatever she could to make ends meet. She hadn't grown up in a world like this. But here she was, surrounded by people who had everything she could only dream of. "So, Emma," one of Liam's colleagues, a tall woman with sharp features, asked, "what brings you to the gala tonight?" Emma hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Well, I'm an artist," she said, her voice small. "I've been trying to find a way into the art world." The woman raised an eyebrow. "The art world, huh? That's interesting. What kind of art do you do?" Emma swallowed nervously. "Mostly sketches. I've been trying to get into galleries and maybe even open my own studio one day." The woman's gaze softened slightly. "That's impressive. I'll be honest, I didn't think you'd be the type to be here." Emma felt a sharp pang of insecurity. "I'm not sure I belong here, either," she admitted, laughing nervously. "But I thought I'd give it a shot." The woman smiled, as if reassured by Emma's honesty. "Well, I'll keep my eyes out for your work," she said before turning to Liam. "You're always full of surprises, aren't you, Liam?" Liam chuckled, but Emma couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. As they moved away from the table, Emma leaned in and whispered, "I don't think they take me seriously." Liam gave her a reassuring look. "Ignore them. They're all just trying to figure out where they fit in, just like everyone else." But Emma couldn't help feeling that they were in a world she didn't understand. She had spent her life scrapping to get by, fighting to get a foot in the door, while these people seemed to have everything handed to them. The evening continued with speeches and presentations, but Emma found it hard to focus. Her mind kept drifting back to the message Liam had sent her earlier, wishing her good luck. She couldn't understand why he was being so kind to her. He didn't know her anything, yet he seemed genuinely interested in her success. As the night wore on, Emma found herself more and more lost in her thoughts. She barely noticed when the gala transitioned into a networking event, where people began mingling and talking about business deals. It wasn't until Liam turned to her again, his face serious, that she realized he had been watching her. "You're not your usual self tonight," he said quietly, his voice low. Emma looked up at him, startled. "What do you mean?" "You're not the same person I met in the cab," he said, his eyes searching hers. "You're holding back, Emma. Don't do that." Emma was taken aback. "I'm just not used to this world," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to fit in." He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder gently. "You don't have to fit in. You just have to be yourself." The sincerity in his voice made Emma's heart skip a beat. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her emotions. "Thanks," she whispered. The night felt long after that, as if time had slowed down. She was acutely aware of every word spoken, every glance exchanged, every laugh, and every handshake. She felt like an imposter in a world that didn't quite belong to her. But Liam stayed by her side, never making her feel less than. As the gala finally began to wind down, Liam turned to her once more. "Come on," he said. "I think it's time we head out." Emma nodded, feeling both relieved and conflicted. She had gotten what she came for, answers, clarity, but at the same time, she still didn't know what Liam's intentions were. Was he just being kind, or was there something more behind his interest in her? As they stepped out into the cool night air, Emma glanced at Liam, wondering what this night would lead to. But for the first time that evening, she allowed herself to enjoy the moment, to forget her doubts, and to simply be in the company of someone who, for reasons she couldn't explain, made her feel like she mattered. The cool night air brushed against Emma's skin as she and Liam made their way toward the parked car. The gala had been a whirlwind of luxury and unfamiliar faces, but somehow, she felt lighter, less burdened by the weight of her doubts. Liam had stayed by her side the entire night, offering quiet reassurance and support. As they neared the car, she realized she hadn't felt this comfortable in a long time, not even when she was at her most confident in the art world. But with Liam, It was different. She had never imagined herself in a world like this, a world of wealth, privilege, and high society. Yet, here she was, being swept into it without ever asking for it. The car's headlights illuminated the street ahead, and as they got in, Liam looked over at her, his face serious. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you," he said softly, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Emma glanced at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I wasn't entirely upfront with you," Liam said, his tone filled with sincerity. "I know we've only just met, but I want to be honest with you." Emma's stomach tightened. She had already suspected that there was more to Liam than he was letting on, but hearing him admit it made her uneasy. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice soft. Liam sighed, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "The truth is, I'm not just a tech entrepreneur. I'm also the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. The art gallery you were interviewing for. It's part of a larger project I'm involved in. I know I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. I didn't want you to feel like I was using my position to get close to you." Emma stared at him, processing his words. She had suspected there was more to him, but hearing it confirmed felt like a punch to the gut. She had been so focused on her dream of becoming an artist that she had ignored the possibility that the man who had helped her was someone far more influential than she could have imagined. But despite the shock, there was something about Liam's honesty that made her trust him even more. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "So, the gala, it was all part of your world?" she asked quietly, feeling like she was stepping into a reality she wasn't sure she belonged to. Liam nodded, his eyes meeting hers for the first time since they'd gotten in the car. "Yes," he said, "but I didn't bring you there to impress you or use you for business. I brought you because I believe in your talent, Emma. I believe you have something special, something the world needs to see." Emma looked at him, her heart swelling with a mixture of confusion and gratitude. She had spent so many years struggling, trying to make a name for herself, and now, here she was, in a car with a man who not only believed in her, but was offering her a chance to truly succeed. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This is all so overwhelming." Liam smiled, his expression softening. "You don't have to say anything right now. I'm not asking for anything in return. I just want to help you get the recognition you deserve." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. For a moment, Emma sat in silence, her mind racing with questions. Was this real? Was she really about to step into a world where her art could be seen by people who could change everything for her? The possibility was almost too much to grasp. As they pulled up to her apartment building, Liam turned off the car and looked at her. "I know this might be a lot to take in," he said gently, "but I want you to think about it. You don't have to decide anything right now." Emma nodded, her throat tight. "I will," she said quietly, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you, Liam." He gave her a reassuring smile before opening the car door. "I'll be in touch," he said as she stepped out onto the sidewalk. "Take care of yourself, Emma. I'll see you soon." Emma watched as the car drove off into the night, leaving her standing there, her mind spinning with the possibilities. She couldn't deny the excitement that bubbled up inside her. She had always dreamed of having her art seen by the world, but this was something she had never imagined. As she walked into her apartment building, Emma's thoughts were consumed with what Liam had said. Could she really trust him? Was this all just a dream? But deep down, she knew one thing for sure. Her life had just changed in ways she couldn't even begin to understand. And no matter what, she was going to embrace it, take the chance, and see where it led. This was her moment, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. Emma woke up the next morning with the sunlight streaming through the blinds, casting soft shadows on her small apartment. She stretched, feeling the weight of the day before still hanging in her mind. The gala, Liam's offer, his honesty, it was all so much to process. Her heart was racing again as the events of the night replayed in her mind. She thought about Liam's words. "I'm not asking for anything in return. I just want to help you get the recognition you deserve." That promise lingered in her thoughts, both a comfort and a challenge. She had spent so many years dreaming of making it in the art world, but now, with this sudden opportunity, everything felt like it was happening too fast. Could she really trust him? Was this just a well-meaning gesture, or was there something more behind it? She couldn't decide, and it was eating her up inside. Emma rubbed her eyes, trying to clear the confusion. She knew she needed to make a decision soon, but the uncertainty was overwhelming. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. She reached for it, seeing a message from Liam. "Hope you're doing well today, Emma. I've arranged a meeting for us with some potential art investors. It could be a great chance for you to showcase your work. I'll send the details soon." Her breath caught in her throat. Investors? This was real. She was really being given a shot at something bigger than she had ever imagined. Emma sat up, the weight of the message sinking in. This wasn't just a casual offer anymore. This was a turning point. She had to decide. Was she ready to take the leap? The day passed in a blur. Emma went through the motions, checking emails, sorting through her art supplies. But her mind kept circling back to the message. That evening, as she sat at her small kitchen table, she found herself staring at her portfolio. She had worked so hard over the years, pouring her heart and soul into her sketches, her designs, her art. But it had always felt like a struggle. Never enough. Never quite the right fit. Now, Liam was offering her a door into a world that felt impossible to enter. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but what if this was her only chance? Emma stood up abruptly, a decision forming in her mind. She needed to see this through. Even if it terrified her, she would go to the meeting. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back. The next morning, Emma found herself in front of a sleek office building in downtown Manhattan. The glass walls reflected the early morning light, and the street was bustling with people. She felt out of place, her second-hand dress and old shoes stark against the polished luxury around her. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she belonged here as much as anyone. As she entered the building, she was greeted by a friendly receptionist who guided her up to a conference room. Emma's heart pounded as she stepped off the elevator. The room was filled with well-dressed men and women, all seated around a large table. At the head of the table sat Liam, who greeted her with a warm smile. "Emma, I'm glad you could make it," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. She nodded, trying to hide the nerves that were creeping up on her. "Thank you for this opportunity," she said, her voice a little shaky. The investors looked her over with interest, but Emma tried to focus on the task at hand. She set her portfolio on the table and began to explain her work, her passion for sketching, her dreams of opening a gallery of her own. As she spoke, she felt a shift. She wasn't just talking about her art anymore. She was talking about her future. She could see the investors' eyes lighting up, their interest piqued. Liam sat quietly beside her, nodding in approval. Emma felt a rush of confidence as she continued, knowing this was her moment. When she finished, the room fell silent for a moment before one of the investors spoke. "You've got something special, Emma. We're very interested in supporting your work," he said. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had done it. She had made an impression. Liam smiled at her, his approval clear in his eyes. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. Emma's mind was racing. This was happening. She was really getting the chance to prove herself. As the meeting came to a close, Liam walked her out of the building, his hand resting gently on her back. "You did great," he said, his voice low and sincere. "This is just the start of something incredible for you." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of everything she had just experienced. The world she had dreamed of for so long was finally within her reach, and it was all because of a chance encounter with a man who had believed in her. But even as she felt the excitement building inside her, she couldn't shake the lingering questions. What did Liam want in return? Why had he been so invested in her success? Was there more to their connection than she realized? She wasn't sure, but for now, she was going to take this chance. She owed it to herself to see where this road would lead. The days that followed the meeting with the investors were a blur for Emma. The thrill of presenting her work, the excitement of being recognized, it all felt like a dream. She had spent years fighting for every opportunity, and now, it seemed like the door to her future had opened wide. But the more she thought about it, the more a small, nagging voice in the back of her mind began to speak up. What did Liam want in return for all of this? It was hard to ignore the feeling that there was something more to his kindness. He had invested so much of his time and effort into helping her, but was it really for nothing, or was there some hidden agenda she hadn't uncovered yet? One evening, as Emma sat at her small kitchen table, working on her next piece of art, she received a message from Liam. "I've set up a private meeting with the investors for next week. It's time to take things to the next level. I believe in you, Emma. Let's make this happen." Her heart raced. The message was brief, but filled with promise. Liam's confidence in her was overwhelming, but it also added to the pressure she was beginning to feel. The words "next level" echoed in her mind. What did that mean? Was she ready for this? Could she handle the responsibility of what was coming? She knew this opportunity was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and yet there was a part of her that felt unprepared, unsure of what her next step should be. She decided to take a step back and think things through before rushing in. The next few days were spent in a haze of reflection and doubt. Emma met with her friend Jenny for coffee, hoping that a conversation with someone who knew her best might help clear her mind. "So, what's going on with Liam?" Jenny asked after Emma had filled her in on the details of the meeting and the subsequent messages from Liam. "He's been so supportive," Emma continued, swirling her coffee nervously. "But I can't shake the feeling that there's something more to this. I mean, why is he going out of his way to help me? Why invest so much in my success?" Jenny listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. "It's clear he believes in you, Emma," she said finally. "But I get why you're feeling uncertain. It's a big leap, and you're not sure what the catch is. But think about it. He doesn't have to do any of this. He could be spending his time on other projects, but he's not. He's choosing to help you." Emma nodded, her eyes focused on the steaming cup in her hands. "I know, but I can't help but wonder if there's something he's not telling me. I mean, I'm just a struggling artist. I've never been part of this world. I don't want to be naive." Jenny smiled warmly. "You're not naive. You're just cautious, and that's okay. But if you want to make this happen, you need to take the leap. You've worked so hard for this, Emma. Don't let fear hold you back." Emma took a deep breath, the weight of Jenny's words sinking in. She had worked for years to get to this point, and now, the opportunity was within reach. Could she really afford to back down out of fear? She needed to trust herself and trust Liam. The next week, Emma arrived at the private meeting with the investors, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent the days leading up to it finalizing her portfolio, preparing for the next step. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew one thing. This was her chance to prove herself. The investors greeted her warmly, and Liam was there, standing at the front of the room, a steady presence that made her feel grounded. "Emma," Liam said as he motioned for her to step forward. "We're here because we believe in you. Your work speaks for itself, and now it's time to take it to the world." Emma stepped forward, feeling the weight of their expectations on her shoulders. She glanced at Liam, whose eyes were filled with confidence and support. He believed in her, and for the first time in a long time, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, she could believe in herself too. The meeting was a success. The investors were impressed with Emma's vision, her passion, and the potential they saw in her work. By the end of the meeting, they offered her the resources and the backing she needed to open her own studio. Emma could hardly believe it. This was everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed about. But as the meeting came to a close, and the investors began to file out of the room, Liam walked over to her. "I'm proud of you," he said, his voice quiet but filled with sincerity. "This is just the beginning, Emma. You've got a long way to go, but I'll be here every step of the way." Emma looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to repay you." Liam smiled. "You don't have to repay me, Emma. I believe in you, and that's enough." The moment hung in the air, and for the first time, Emma truly believed that this was her moment. She had made it. She had taken the leap, and now, the world was hers to conquer. She didn't know what the future held, but with Liam's support and her own determination, she was ready to face whatever came next. The next few weeks flew by, and Emma's life seemed to shift into high gear. The studio, which had once been nothing more than a distant dream, was now becoming a reality. Thanks to the backing from the investors and the guidance Liam had offered, Emma had signed a lease for a small, but bright, space downtown. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The walls were bare for now, but she could already see her art filling every inch. There was a sense of excitement in the air as she worked tirelessly, overseeing the renovation, picking out colors, and planning how to showcase her work. But even with all the success and progress, doubts still crept in. The thought of what Liam had done for her was always in the back of her mind. She had never been the type to rely on anyone, but he had been there, supporting her when she needed it the most. There was something about the way he believed in her that made her feel both empowered and vulnerable at the same time. The pressure to live up to his expectations weighed on her. One evening, After a long day of work at the studio, Emma found herself sitting on the edge of her bed, her mind racing. She had poured her heart into her art, into the studio, and into every moment she spent building this new life. But what if she couldn't keep up? What if the pressure became too much? She was about to step into a world that was so different from the one she had known, and part of her feared she wasn't ready for it. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from Liam. "I'm proud of you, Emma. You're doing amazing things. Don't forget to take a breath and enjoy it all." A small smile tugged at her lips as she read his words. It was the kind of message that made her feel seen, heard, and supported. It was easy to get lost in the whirlwind of her new life, but Liam's words grounded her. She wasn't alone in this. After a deep breath, she typed back, "Thank you, Liam. Your support means everything to me. I'm excited and scared all at once, but I'm ready for this." The reply came quickly, "You're more than ready. I believe in you." Those words, simple yet powerful, sent a surge of warmth through her chest. She felt a wave of gratitude, but also a deep sense of admiration for him. He had given her so much, more than anyone had ever offered, and it was hard to shake the feeling that she owed him something in return. But what could she give him? What was she supposed to do when someone had done so much for her? The thought lingered in her mind, leaving her with an uncomfortable feeling. The next day, as Emma continued to work at the studio, she began to make plans for the grand opening. She decided it would be small, intimate, just a few friends, some local artists, and the investors who had backed her. She wanted it to be something personal, a reflection of who she was and what she had worked so hard for. As the event neared, the nervousness returned. This was her moment to show the world who she really was, but it felt like everything was riding on this one night. Could she pull it off? Would people see the value in her work? Could she live up to Liam's expectations? The night of the opening, the studio was buzzing with excitement. The space had been transformed into a gallery, the walls adorned with her sketches and designs. There was a soft hum of conversation as people wandered through the space, admiring her work. Liam had promised he would come, but she hadn't heard from him all day. She felt a flutter of nerves in her chest as she stood by the door, greeting guests. The atmosphere was exactly what she had hoped for, welcoming, warm, and filled with the energy of new beginnings. But even as she smiled and made small talk, her eyes kept darting toward the door, hoping to catch a glimpse of Liam. Finally, after what seemed like hours, he walked in, looking as effortlessly charming as ever. His presence instantly changed the room. He made his way over to her, a soft smile playing on his lips. "Emma," he said, his voice low and sincere. "This is incredible. You've really outdone yourself." Her heart fluttered at his praise. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It means the world to me that you're here." Liam smiled and glanced around the room. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As the evening wore on, Emma found herself relaxed, the tension in her shoulders slowly easing. Liam was there, talking to the investors, discussing her work with them, but he always made sure to check in on her, offering quiet words of encouragement. The evening was a success. People admired her art, and the investors showed genuine interest in supporting her further. When the last guests left, Emma stood in the middle of the studio, taking in the sight of it all, the people, the art, the connections she had made. It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. Liam found her as she stood there, alone in the middle of her new world. He walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Emma. You've built something incredible here." She turned to face him, her eyes filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. Liam smiled softly, his eyes filled with admiration. "You don't owe me anything. This is all yours. You earned it." Emma nodded, feeling the weight of his words. This was her journey, her success, and no matter what had brought her here, she was going to make the most of it. With Liam's support and her own determination, she was ready to face whatever came next. The weeks that followed the opening of her studio felt like a whirlwind, with Emma managing her growing business and art, all while adjusting to the support she had been given. The success of the opening night had brought in a steady stream of clients and investors interested in her work. Her dream was now a reality, and it was everything she had hoped for and more. But with the success came a weight she hadn't fully anticipated. The pressure to keep up with the expectations of her investors and the constant support from Liam started to feel like a balancing act. She couldn't help but question her place in all of it. Was she just riding on Liam's coattails? Did she really deserve all of this? As much as she tried to push the doubts aside, they lingered. Emma had always been fiercely independent. She had built her life from the ground up, piece by piece, with nothing more than her own determination and talent. And now, with the studio thriving and opportunities pouring in, she felt like an imposter at times. But Liam, as always, seemed to know exactly what to say. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Emma found herself sitting at her desk, working on her latest project. She had just finished outlining a new exhibit when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "I'm proud of you, Emma. You're doing more than just creating art. You're building something meaningful. Just remember, you've earned every bit of it." Her heart warmed as she read his words. She had received so much help, so much guidance, but it was still her work, her passion that had made all of this possible. She had built this life on her own. She typed back a quick reply. "Thank you, Liam. I couldn't have done it without you." The reply came almost instantly. "You didn't have to do it alone. You've got this." That message stayed with her long after the conversation ended. Liam's belief in her had been a constant source of strength, but more than that, it had become a reminder that she didn't have to carry the weight of everything on her own. She had the support she needed, and it was okay to lean on others when she needed it. As time passed, Emma found herself learning not only how to run her studio, but also how to navigate the complexities of the art world she had only dreamed of entering. She was invited to exhibitions, worked with more high-profile clients, and her name began to gain recognition. But even with all of this, Emma never forgot where she came from. She continued to stay grounded, using her success to help others in the local art community who were struggling just as she had once been. Liam, too, remained a constant in her life. They had become close friends, even though the complexities of their initial relationship still lingered. He never once pressured her, never made her feel indebted. Their relationship had grown from one of professional support to one built on mutual respect and understanding. One evening, as they sat together in her studio, admiring her latest pieces, Emma looked at Liam and spoke her thoughts aloud. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about everything, how I got here, and how much you've helped me. I don't think I could have done this without you, but I also know that I've worked for every bit of it. I've earned this, and I have to remind myself of that sometimes." Liam smiled at her, his eyes soft with understanding. "You're right," he said, his voice steady. "You've earned everything you've achieved, and don't let anyone, including me, make you doubt that. But it's also okay to accept help when it's offered. You're not alone in this, Emma. You've got people who care about you." His words settled in her heart. She had always feared being dependent, but now she understood that strength wasn't just in independence. It was in knowing when to allow others in. As the months passed, Emma continued to build her career and her legacy. She hosted more exhibits, began teaching art to young students, and used her success to give back to the community that had supported her throughout her journey. And through it all, Liam remained by her side, not just as a supporter, but as a friend who had helped her believe in herself when she needed it the most. One day, as Emma stood in front of her studio, looking out at the street lined with people admiring her work, she realized just how far she had come. She had started with nothing more than a dream, a handful of sketches, and a desire to make her mark on the world. And now, she had done it. She had built something lasting, something meaningful. And while the journey had been long and filled with doubts and challenges, Emma knew that she had finally found her place in the world. She was not just an artist anymore. She was a creator, a businesswoman, and a person who had learned to believe in herself. And as she walked through the doors of her studio, ready to face the future, she felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that whatever came next, she was ready for it. The world was hers to shape, and she would do it on her own terms, with the support of those who believed in her. Experience an inspiring and heartwarming journey in this touching story about a struggling artist who receives unexpected support from a successful entrepreneur, changing her life forever. Follow Emma as she navigates the complexities of building her art studio, overcoming self-doubt, and realizing her dreams with the help of a mentor who believes in her. This touching story is filled with moments of growth, friendship, and personal transformation as Emma learns to trust in her own abilities while also accepting help from others. Through ups and downs, she discovers the true meaning of success, not just in her career, but in her relationships and personal growth. The touching story unfolds with heartfelt moments that will leave you inspired and motivated to take on your own challenges. Discover how Emma's journey proves that with hard work, dedication, and a little support from the right people, anything is possible. This touching story is a testament to the power of believing in yourself and the importance of the connections we make along the way. Watch this touching story unfold and witness how Emma's courage and Liam's unwavering support help her build a future that is all her own.